I chose this article because it seemed to be factual and concise. I can't do much about the ads. I mean, a lot of websites have ads, unfortunately. Alright, so fascism is a right-wing political movement rooted in 19th century elitist nationalism and cultural romanticism. This person I have heard of. I don't know that much about her. I do know that she tends to be associated with Nazi propaganda, and it's incredibly important propaganda to particularly governments that are trying to indoctrinate people into a way of thinking that doesn't make any sense. It's always kind of the same things. A very simplified message. They kind of just shout across at their opponents, rather than actually present arguments, reasons, anything at all to just kind of support the really totally outlandish things that they want people to do. They just kind of raise the volume. They just kind of try to yell and shout and sort of cover the walls and cover the world with particular images, particular phrases, particular gestures, that sort of thing. I mean, it's propaganda. Propaganda is always used by authoritarian situations to try to get people to do things that don't make any sense, right? To try to stop them from thinking, to try to stop them from asking questions. Usually what it tries to offer in exchange to the people that it's trying to reach is a feeling of superiority. That is usually what it tries to offer in exchange for people for giving up their individualism, right? Do these things, think these things, think this way, talk this way, look this way, treat this other group very, very, very badly, and that certainly solidifies your membership in this elite group. It advocates authoritarian single-party rule as the only solution for the socioeconomic problems of modern society. Fascism became a political force after World War I, when right-wing parties throughout Europe promised to restore health, moral order, and a sense of purpose to their respective national communities. In 1921, the first self-proclaimed fascist party was founded by Benito Mussolini in Italy. Mussolini took the term fascist from an ancient Roman word meaning a bundle of sticks, used as a disciplinary tool. As the term suggests, the National Fascist Party brought together various socioeconomic groups, particularly those who felt disenfranchised by World War I and or the Great Depression. Veterans, the lower middle class, and youth. Fascism recognizes youth as a vulnerable and politically significant population. In the 1920s and 1930s, fascist parties promised young people not only jobs and educational opportunities, but also a divine mission, to be the leaders of a revolutionary movement that would purify the nation. The fascists promoted a cult of the youthful, featuring young heroes in their music, film, and literature, rejecting the ruling elite as cynical and complacent, and emphasizing the relative youthfulness of their own leaders. Fascism celebrated duty, loyalty, and physical vitality, and challenged the young to use their natural energy, idealism, and competitiveness for the good of the national community. Fascist youth associations attracted large majorities of young people in Italy under Mussolini's rule and in Germany under the Nazi dictatorship. In these state-sponsored movements, young people found a variety of subsidized leisure opportunities, a strong national identity, and clearly defined gender roles. Because leaders encouraged members to put youth group duties above all other responsibilities, many youth joined in order to undermine the traditional authority of parents, school, or church. This practice reinforced core fascist beliefs that individuals owed primary allegiance to the state and that youth, not their elders, would shape the future. Benito Mussolini ruled Italy as a dictator from 1922 to 1945. His National Fascist Party offered a comprehensive array of clubs and service organizations for youth ages 6 to 21, thereby challenging the traditional role of Catholic associations and sports clubs. The fascists worked hard to attract older youth, particularly university students, but were most successful in mobilizing 8 to 14-year-old boys into their Balilla organization, which promoted physical fitness and paramilitary training. Parallel groups for girls, such as the Piccole Italiane, promoted ideals of domesticity and motherhood. In Germany, the NSDAP Nazi Party, led by Adolf Hitler, won power in 1933 and immediately assumed dictatorial control of the country. The party's youth wing quickly evolved into a state-sponsored movement intended to simultaneously inspire, educate, and compel young Germans to serve the Nazi state. Like the Italian fascists, the Nazis prescribed obedience, loyalty, and gender-specific roles. German youth were taught that racial purity would help Germany regain its proper dominant role among European nations. In their view, Jews, Gypsies, and other minorities had contaminated Germanic culture and weakened the nation. Is this sounding familiar? Through new national youth organizations, the Nazis recruited young Germans to help cleanse society of these racial impurities. In addition to ideological indoctrination and obedience, the boys' Hitler Youth emphasized preparation for future service in the German army or navy. The Parallel League of German Maidens promised physical health, service, and motherhood, encouraging older members to volunteer for a youth or more of domestic service. Smaller fascist youth movements such as the French Jeunesse Patriote existed throughout Europe prior to World War II. The Hitler Youth, however, is by far the most successful. Sorry, excuse me, I do try not to cough. I have made this video so many times, right? I have made it so many times, and I can't stop just because I had to cough. I'm sorry about that. It doesn't mean anything at all. Through the Hitler Youth, the Nazi state controlled virtually all educational, vocational, and recreational opportunities and effectively coordinated propaganda, peer pressure, and intimidation techniques to claim at its peak more than 95% of German youth as members. After World War II, the Nazis' militant authoritarianism and nationalism were blamed for corrupting and exploiting an entire generation of young Germans, and fascist youth groups were banned in many countries. Isolated groups persisted, often in secret association with racist political association. The skinhead movement, originally a working-class youth subculture that emerged in the 1970s and 1980s, was initially associated with fascism. However, both European and American skinheads typically embrace Nazi symbols of swastika, aggressive behavior, and nationalism. They lack a clear political organization. Consequently, most observers describe the skinheads as a rebellious subculture rather than a fascist youth movement. And I did want to mention this. I bought a very inexpensive pair of Jewish star earrings. I was raised to be Jewish. I don't necessarily look stereotypically Jewish, but since I did shave my head, and my shaving my head was in protest. But I also did not want people to think I was a skinhead, or for the conglomerate to be able to portray me as being a skinhead. And that's why I bought the earrings. I am not Orthodox Jew. I am mostly. It's interesting. I mean, I could talk about misogyny. I could talk about misogyny in Judaism, but what I was thinking of was situations in which people are protesting various situations. Certainly in concentration camps, people had their head shaved, and then they had the number written on their arms, as a tattoo. It was tattooed onto their skin. It was very dehumanizing, what I feel has happened to me is extremely dehumanizing. It's dehumanizing for me. It's just a very, very, very bad time. For the world in history. It's incredibly destructive of human rights. Privacy is very important, and the ability to just not be stalked, not harassed, all of those things. It's awful. Everything that's happening is so awful. Let's see. Consequently, most observers describe the skinheads as a rebellious subculture rather than a fascist youth movement. The camera's going to run out of film for this particular video. I can only make up to a certain number of minutes, so I'll stop here.